It's Sunday. I gotta get to work. Check out this video.
So I know I said I'd be doing fun videos on Saturdays, but this, and I'm sure you can agree, is not a fun video in particular, but I think it's important because I said I would keep you guys up to date with everything that's going on in this f***ed up country that is America. And I refuse to stay silent about everything, and I refuse to let it be swept under the rug like the government wants us to have it swept under the rug. So we're going to be talking about just stuff you'd think couldn't be real, but it is. And it just keeps getting worse. It keeps getting so much worse, but there's a little sliver of hope. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about all the bad stuff, but we're going to talk about that little sliver of hope that I hope turns into something tangible and something we can actually use. So without further ado, let's get into this storm that is Epstein, Donald Trump, the government, and the survivors that are so brave in speaking out. All right, so this isn't like a deep dive like I usually do. I'm quite literally just giving you guys an update on everything that's going on right now. So buckle up. So on September 2nd, 2025, which was from right now, like a week ago, the House Oversight Committee released what they called a major transparency victory. Yay! Wow, the government's doing something. And that was 33,295 pages of Epstein-related documents. That's great, isn't it? Isn't it? Isn't it? No, it's not. Because 97% of those documents were already in the public domain. It was just bullshit. They might as well have given us a tissue box to blow our noses in. But this was just a ploy to make it look like they were doing something, months and months, years later. And according to Democratic Representative Ro Khanna, there was flight logs that we've already seen before, court transcripts from Ghislaine Maxwell's trial that were already public. I know in my last one, I called her Ghislaine, which is kind of funny because it sounds weird, but I'll call her Ghislaine because most people call her Ghislaine, so I'm going to call her Ghislaine. Also, pausing, if you haven't heard about all the Epstein stuff and what's really going on, I encourage you to watch this video. I did like a full deep dive on everything that's going on. Now I'm probably just going to be doing, semi-regular updates as they come, as information compiles together. I'm not sure how many there will be or if there will be more, but as of right now, I have this video and this video if you want all the information. Let's take a less serious moment to talk about something literally none of you are thinking about in this moment, and that is my wedding photos. A couple weeks ago, I was going through the raw pictures from my wedding because I wanted to make a post, and I realized there are a few photos I really love, but they didn't look great. And it was mostly because of the lighting. So I opened up FaceApp. And before you roll your eyes thinking this is one of those apps that turns you into literally a different person, just watch how I use it. Like this photo, it's a cute photo, but the shadows are harsh. It's like dull looking. I feel like I should sparkle on my wedding day and I just don't feel sparkly, So you can do a lot of things on FaceApp, which is really cool. You can go into impressions and you can kind of use their like already formatted filter. I think, because supporting this channel, and let's get back to it. Basically, the only new disclosure was less than 1,000 pages from the Customs and Border Protection's log of flight locations of Epstein's plane from 2000 to 2014. And those forms show when Epstein's plane entered the US airspace. That's it. So this wasn't any sort of transparency. It was theater. That seems to be what the government is. It's just a bunch of like theater people, it's like a play that they're putting on that they didn't write yet, that they're just kind of improvising, it seems. And what makes this whole thing particularly insulting is that the 33,000 plus documents provided by the DOJ to Congress is just a fraction of the files the Department of Justice has in their possession. And we know that. That's like the big joke, is like, we know you have the files, It's like, we know you're in there. We like, come out. It's like when you see somebody's feet under the curtain when they're playing hide and seek. It's like, I found you, bitch. Like, just open the curtain. We all know you're there. And the FBI's electronic case management system contains over 300 gigabytes of data and millions of records from the trafficking investigation. Yet what we got was essentially recycling of old news packaged as progress. And the Trump administration's response to the Epstein files has been nothing short of extraordinary, as we already know, especially if you saw my last video. And it's not in any way his supporters had hoped. Because during his campaign, just for a little brief overview, Trump promised transparency, right? And in a June 2024 interview with Fox News, when asked,
would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
And in September of 2024, he told Lex Friedman he would have, quote,
Yeah, I'd certainly take a look at it.
Releasing additional Epstein files and would probably make the client list public. Fast forward to September 3rd of 2025, which is about a week ago, when asked about survivors calling for the full release of the files, Trump's response was crazy. And he said,
This is a Democrat hoax that never ends.
And this was spoken in the Oval Office while survivors, including registered Republicans, were literally standing on the Capitol steps sharing their stories of abuse. And that's what this video was sparked by, was seeing all of these survivors actually standing up on Capitol Hill saying like, hey, we were there. We're going to compile our own list, mother. And that's badass as hell. And one survivor, Haley Robson, directly addressed Trump's hoax comment by saying, Mr. President Donald J. Trump, I am a registered Republican. Not that that matters, because this is not political. However, I cordially invite you to the Capitol to meet me in person so you can understand this is not a hoax. We are real human beings. This is trauma. And you just think about that, you know? Survivors having to prove that they exist. While the president, the piece of shit, is sitting in the Oval Office saying that this is fake, that their stories are fake. That, like, I can't even think of something more insulting. They're basically having to beg the president to acknowledge their own humanity. So what's driving this whole reversal? Well, according to reporting, Trump was briefed by his attorney general in May that his name appears multiple times in the files. And the administration has tried various deflection tactics, releasing unrelated documents and blaming Democrats, even having Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, allege a years-long coup and treasonous conspiracy from the White House podium, which is crazy. And don't think the Democrats aren't any better, by the way. They had plenty of time to release the files and never did. There was no right and left. There was only these two hands, like, punching us in the face and laughing at this point. And they're just going like, he did it, she did it, he did it, he did it, they did it. It's like, oh my God, just give us the files, just own your shit. But going back, like, the most powerful moment of September 25 so far came when survivors announced that they're taking matters into their own hands. And Lisa Phillips, an Epstein survivor who hosts a podcast for victims, made a amazing announcement saying, quote, several of us Epstein survivors have been discussing creating our own list of names. We know the names. Many of us were abused by them, unquote. Just think about what that means. These survivors, many of whom risk lawsuits and retaliation, and as we know, and as we'll talk about more, potential threatening situation, because as we've seen the government do in the past, they love just making people disappear, maybe, allegedly, I don't know. I mean, it's a terrifying thing to come forward, and you have people being like, oh, now they're coming forward, like, this seems fake, all this stuff. It's like, they're putting their lives at risk coming forward and talking about this, and the amount of, like, defamation lawsuits they're gonna get and all this stuff, it's going to compile. So I commend these brave as hell women to come forward and to look into the face of all these just monsters and be like, yeah, you're not going to be able to hide under the covers anymore, you giant pieces of shit. Like, we're going to call you out. I'm I am so excited for that, but also scared for them. And Phillips said the list would be compiled by survivors and for survivors, and that the public should stay tuned for more details. And Marina Lacerda, speaking publicly for the first time about her abuse, who was just 14 when she met Epstein, said, quote, "Our government could have saved so many women, but Jeffrey Epstein was too important and those women didn't matter." And Representatives Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene offered to use their congressional immunity to name names, which is huge. And Massie said he and Greene are willing to name names on any list compiled by survivors using their constitutional speech or debate immunity to protect themselves from lawsuits. So that's huge because these women could say these names. It's like, well, why can't they just say the names? Because all these extremely powerful people could come back and sue them into the ground for defaming them, even if they aren't. I mean, they're telling the truth, but obviously these assholes are going to say that they're not, and they're just going to run them dry. So this way, they're actually able to give the names to these people so they can speak on behalf of them, and they'll be protected by law. But this is where we are in 2025. Survivors and a handful of lawmakers going rogue because the system refuses to work. And the human cost of this institutional failure became tragically clear in April of 2025, which we spoke about briefly in my last video, but I'm going to remind you about Virginia Roberts Giuffre, who was the survivor who first gave voice to the horrors of Epstein's crimes, and who faced down Prince Andrew, and who inspired countless other victims to come forward, and died by apparent ending of her own life at her farm in Western Australia. And she was only 41 years old. And Virginia was one of the earliest and loudest voices calling for criminal charges against Epstein and enablers. And other Epstein survivors later credited her with giving them the courage to speak out. And her family's statement is absolutely heartbreaking, saying, quote, "She lost her life to ending her own life after being a lifelong victim of sexual abuse and trafficking." And at the September 3rd press conference, Virginia's relatives appeared, with her sister-in-law, Amanda Roberts, condemning Trump's hoax comments, saying, "It's not a hoax. There's testimony after testimony. Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted. We know that this is real." And to hear the leader of their nation say things like that, for us, it's gut-wrenching. So Virginia Giuffre spent her final years fighting for transparency and for justice for other survivors. And she died never seeing the full truth released. And her memoir, Nobody's Girl, is set to be published in October of 2025. And it was her final attempt to ensure the truth isn't buried with her. So let's be clear about what's happening here. This isn't incompetence, it's just obstruction. And in February of 2025, Attorney General Pam Bondi claimed on Fox News,
"It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed."
And months later, the DOJ issued a memo saying no such list exists. It's just constantly like, oh yeah, it's real. Oh wait, no, it's not. Oh yeah, Donald Trump's name's on it. Oh wait, no, it's not. Oh, it is actually on it. But if it is on it, it's just the Democrats putting it on there, and everything in there is fake and nothing is real. It just never ends. It's like, they don't even think we're dumb. They're just like, just shut up. Just shut up. Like, just move on, you know? Like, in the last video, I was very pushing. I think the title of the video was like, they think we're dumb. But I really just think they don't care. They just know that we can't do anything about it. But that's not the case if we keep talking about it. But the people in charge right now really don't like that, to the point where they're attacking survivors and lawmakers and saying that they're spreading a hoax and pressuring Republicans not to support transparency efforts, with one anonymous official calling voting for Massey's discharge petition a very hostile act to the administration. So wanting to get these files out is now a hostile act. That's horrifying. And even House Speaker Mike Johnson is running interference. Because when Massey filed a discharge petition to force a vote on releasing all the files, Johnson introduced a competing resolution that Massey called, quote, meaningless, unquote, a non-binding resolution that doesn't really do anything. And a leaked recording from September 4th revealed the depth of this whole cover-up. The DOJ official, Joseph Schnitt, was secretly recorded saying there, quote,
yeah, thousands and thousands of pages of files. They'll redact every Republican or conservative person in those files, leave all the liberal, Democratic people in those files.
What? Like, that's crazy. And first of all, it's like horrifying to know that like they have the files. They're just like making changes to it before they release it to us. But that there's both Republican and Democrat names in there. That's what I'm saying. Like, there's no sides at all. We need to come as one, as a giant fist, and fucking uppercut the government in the chin, dude. Like the fact that, and they're just talking about it. Like they're just talking about it. Like, yeah. We'll get them out there maybe. And if they do, we'll make sure that it's all changed so nobody actually knows what's going on. And he also claimed Ghislaine Maxwell, was, quote, transferred to a minimum security prison against Federal Bureau of Prisons policy, and that they're offering her something to keep her mouth shut. So that's what I was talking about in the last video, is like, how is she in this day spa prison? Because they sent her to a day spa prison, basically. And it was obviously because she's not giving them information, because they're asking her basically not to give her information and to shut the up, and then she can get treated in a reasonable manner. And this whole recording leak just proves that point. So this isn't just about Jeffrey Epstein. It's about a system that protects predators when they're powerful enough. And then that's what it all comes down to. And then we have Shante Davies, another Epstein survivor, that said at the press conference that Epstein, quote, bragged about his powerful friends, including our current president, Donald Trump. It was his biggest brag, actually, unquote. Just tells us basically what we already know, what we can already assume, you know, that the president of the United States of America is pro people that like children too much, or he is one of those people. And there's no in between. There's no which way about it. He's either one or both. So that's horrifying. Also, that's just my thoughts. That's an alleged. I'm not claiming that that's the case. I don't want to get in legal trouble. And the survivors really aren't asking for much. All they want is a full release of documents with their identities redacted, and unredacted copies for survivors themselves, and accountability for those who enabled decades of abuse. And instead of that, they just get nothing. And as survivor Anuska De Giorgio put it, quote, to be clear, the only motive for opposing this bill would be to conceal wrongdoing. You have a choice. Stand with the truth or with lies that have protected predators for decades, unquote. So the announcement that survivors are compiling their own list represents not just a watershed moment, but it's an act of extraordinary courage in the face of very, very real danger. And obviously this decision wasn't made lightly, and attorney Brad Edwards, who had represented over 200 Epstein survivors, explained the complexity and the danger, saying, quote, most of these individuals, the victims, are very scared to say these names because they could get sued. They're going to get attacked, and nobody protected them the first time, unquote. And the survivors' fear isn't paranoia, it's just pattern recognition, like we were talking about before. Because consider the body count among those connected to Epstein. First, we have Jean-Luc Brunel, the French modeling agent who allegedly trafficked girls to Epstein and was found hanged in his prison cell in February of 2022. And then there's Steven Hoffenberg, Epstein's former business partner who cooperated with the FBI and spoke publicly about Epstein's alleged Mossad connections, and he was found dead in his Connecticut apartment in August of 2022. And his body was so decomposed it required dental records for identification. And then there's Steve Bing, the Hollywood producer who spoke to the FBI about Epstein, who fell from the 27th floor apartment in June of 2020. And Mark Middleton, a Clinton advisor with ties to Epstein, was found both hanged and shot in Arkansas in May of 2022. But police ruled it a ending of his own life. And Thomas Bowers, the Deutsche Bank executive who oversaw Epstein's accounts, was found hanged in November of 2019. A National Enquirer investigation identified 22 people in Epstein's orbit who have died under mysterious circumstances. And private investigator Ed Opperman told the publication, quote, there were a lot of people entrapped and entangled through Epstein's web, and many of those people are gone now, dead. They are all connected through a money trail. unquote. And even Virginia Giuffre, before her own tragic death, faced constant threats. And in her final note, she wrote about, quote unquote, evil people wanting to see her quieted. So the September 3rd press conference just revealed the careful calculus survivors must make between seeking justice and preserving their own safety, which is horrifying. It's horrifying to think we live in a world like this. But I think to really understand Trump's desperate reversal on the Epstein files, we need to examine the most explosive allegation in those documents, one that directly implicates the sitting president of the United States. And that is, in April of 2016, as Trump was securing the Republican nomination, a woman using the pseudonym Katie Johnson filed a federal lawsuit alleging that Trump and Epstein had her when she was 13 years old at parties in Epstein's Manhattan mansion in 1994. And the details in her sworn declaration are absolutely horrifying, because according to court documents, quote, I loudly pleaded with defendant Trump to stop, but he did not. Defendant Trump responded to my pleas by violently striking me in the face with his open hand and screaming that he would do whatever he wanted, unquote. And she claimed Trump had tied her to the bed and forcibly forced himself on her while she begged him to stop. And when she pleaded that she was a virgin, Trump allegedly struck her and threatened that she and her family would be, quote, physically harmed, if not killed, unquote, if she ever revealed what happened. Which is just it's sickening. It's gut-wrenching. It's disgusting, if real, because we don't actually know. But the case followed a strange trajectory, because in April of 2016, when it was first filed in California, it was dismissed for technical errors. And then June of 2016, they refiled in New York with more detail. And then September of 2016, they filed again with additional witness testimony. And then November 2nd of 2016, that scheduled press conference was abruptly canceled. And in November 4th of 2016, the case voluntarily was dismissed. And this was just 4 days before the election. And the lawsuit included corroborating testimony from Tiffany Doe, who claimed she was employed by Epstein to recruit underage girls. And she stated she personally witnessed 4 encounters where Jane Doe was forced to have inappropriate interactions with Trump and 2 with Epstein. And a third witness, Jane Doe, declared that Jane Doe had told her about the during the 1994 to 1995 school year. And this is just other evidence that predated Trump's political career by decades. And the November 2nd press conference where Jane Doe was to go public just never happened. An attorney, Lisa Bloom, announced that her client had received multiple death threats and was too frightened to appear. And 2 days later, the case was dropped entirely. And Trump's lawyer, Alan Garten, called the allegations categorically untrue and completely frivolous. But here's what's crucial, is that these allegations exist in sealed court documents that have never been fully investigated or adjudicated. So Trump and Epstein were really, really good friends, that's a quote, in 1994, according to multiple witnesses. And Epstein later told journalist Michael Wolff he had been Trump's closest friend for 10 years. And these alleged STDs occurred at the same Manhattan mansion where countless other verified assaults took place. And the plaintiff provided specific dates, locations, and witness testimony. So we don't really need to connect the dots, but if you need me to, here it is. Trump promised to release the Epstein files when he thought they would damage his political opponents. But after being briefed that his name appeared multiple times in those files, including potentially these unresolved allegations, he's calling the entire thing a Democratic hoax. And the Katie Johnson case may have been dropped, but the allegations still remain. And if the full Epstein files contain additional evidence or corroboration of these claims, it would explain why Trump has gone from promising transparency to attacking survivors as liars. And this context is essential for understanding why survivors are now compiling their own list. They know there are names in those files, powerful names, of men who raped children, and they know their government would rather protect those men than seek justice for any victims. And the Jane Doe who accused Trump may have disappeared into hiding, terrorized into silence. But the survivors standing on the Capitol steps in 2025 refused to be intimidated. because they've seen what happens when you trust the system to deliver justice. So they're taking matters into their own hands, and I just want to help in any way I can. And that's just I don't know, keep talking about the story. I want to, reach out and give them a platform as well. I don't know if any of them will see this, but I'm going to reach out on my own time. But I just want it to get out there. But that's not the only thing that has come out recently. And as of just yesterday, the GOP-led House Oversight Committee received a 238-page leather-bound book from Jeffrey Epstein's estate. And it's a birthday album compiled by convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell for Epstein's 50th birthday in 2003. And what they found inside would shatter months of White House denials and reveal the depths of Trump's relationship with the convicted pedophile during the height of his crimes. So the birthday book's existence first emerged in July of 2025 when the Wall Street Journal reported on a bawdy letter allegedly from Trump. But the president's response was, of course, swift and furious. And he denied writing any letter, claiming, "I never wrote a picture in my life." What, wrote a picture? He didn't even know English properly. What the f? And he filed a $10 billion defamation lawsuit against the newspaper and Rupert Murdoch. And for months, the White House insisted the letter was fake and didn't exist. And then came September 8th. And after the House Oversight Committee subpoenaed Epstein's estate, the birthday book arrived. And within hours, Democrats released the most explosive page, and that was Trump's contribution. And the administration's response pattern revealed everything from denying existence to attacking reporters to disputing authenticity when confronted with evidence, just the shit they've already been doing. And Vice President J.D. Vance dismissed it as another fake scandal like Russiagate. What? While the White House shifted to claiming it's not his signature, even though it looks exactly like his signature. So what did Trump put in this black birthday book, this leather-bound black birthday book? Well, Trump's note to Epstein contains 3 disturbing elements. 1, a hand-drawn outline of a naked woman's torso with Trump's signature, and Donald scrawled where the care would be, which is weird and gross, and it's just a crude greeting between 2 men who would later be connected to the trafficking of minors. And then there's the cryptic-ass dialogue, which was a typewritten conversation that reads like a coded exchange between conspirators, where it says,
"There must be more to life than having everything." Donald says, "Yes, there is, but I won't tell you what it is." Jeffrey, "Nor will I, since I also know what it is." Donald, "We have certain things in common, Jeffrey." Jeffrey, "Yes, we do, come to think of it." Donald, "Enigmas never age. Have you noticed that?" Jeffrey, "As a matter of fact, it was clear to me the last time I saw you."
And then the closing,
"A pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret."
lock him up. What's going on? And this 238-page album with the first 50 years embossed on its binding provides just a disturbing window into how Epstein compartmentalized his world. And Maxwell organized contributors into revealing categories, which is family, Brooklyn, girlfriends with all names redacted, children with all names redacted, friends, science, special assistants, and business. And the book also contains Epstein's birth certificate, photos from childhood to adulthood, photos of nude women and women in bikinis, and a chocolate chip recipe, and math equations, and some explicit stories about encounters. It's just like an odd, just Black Mirror glimpse into this horrific world. But the complete redaction of entire categories, particularly children and girlfriends, raises immediate questions about who these individuals were and why their identities require protection even now. And that there was a children category in a sex trafficker's birthday book should alarm everyone. And Trump appears in the Friends section alongside a rogues gallery of controversial figures such as Bill Clinton, who had a handwritten note that said, "It's reassuring, isn't it, to have lasted as long across all the years of learning and knowing, and also to have your childlike curiosity, the drive to make a difference, and the solace of friends." I hate these people. And Leon Black, who was the billionaire who paid Epstein $158 million for unclear services, but we know what those services were. And Jean-Luc Brunel, the modeling agent who died by ending his own life in the French prison while awaiting trial. And Alan Dershowitz, who was accused by Virginia Giuffre of abuse. And Les Wexner, the Victoria's Secret mogul who gave Epstein the power of attorney that we talked about in the last video. And Mort Zuckerman, the media mogul decoding the wonderful secrets. And the repeated references to secrets and what it is that both men claim to know but won't reveal suggest shared confidential activities. And the phrase enigmas never age just takes on a chilling meaning given Epstein's crimes involving minors. So this wasn't a casual friendship like Trump loves to paint that narrative of. It's just stupid. This was two men speaking in code about shared interests that they couldn't name explicitly, even in a private birthday message. And the note was written in 2003, 1 year after Trump told New York Magazine that Epstein was a terrific guy who likes women on the younger side, and during the peak years of Epstein's trafficking operation. So this whole timing is just critical, because this very intimate exchange happened while Epstein was actively children. And then there's Ghislaine Maxwell. And in her July 2025 interview with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, Maxwell claimed that she could not recall if Trump responded to her request for birthday contributions, despite his letter being prominently featured in the Friends section. And this selective memory from someone serving 20 years for trafficking minors suggests ongoing efforts to protect powerful individuals, even from federal prison. And attorney Brad Edwards, who we were talking about before, representing Epstein survivors, captured the whole significance of all of this, saying, quote, "Trump's hypocrisy has been most frustrating for the victims. He told the public the Epstein story shouldn't go away, yet filed a $10 billion lawsuit that only magnifies the very issue he wants silenced." And the birthday book just proves that point and several others. And that is that documentation exists, contradicting Trump's denials about his Epstein relationship, and the estate possesses materials that could identify participants in the Epstein crimes, and the systematic redactions of entire categories suggest ongoing cover-ups. And then there's Trump's credibility on all Epstein's matters is irreparably damaged from this revelation. And the fact that committee chairman James Comer immediately pivoted to claiming President Trump is not accused of any wrongdoing, while simultaneously pursuing depositions, suggests even Republicans recognize the damaging nature of these revelations. So this birthday note isn't just an embarrassing artifact, it's evidence of an intimate relationship between Trump and Epstein at the very time when Epstein was trafficking children. And the secretive, coded language and sexual imagery suggests Trump knew more about Epstein's activities than he has admitted, which we already know. Now it's just on paper for us. And the wonderful secrets they shared in the note, the things they had in common, the enigmas that never age, these aren't the words of casual acquaintances. And most importantly, this note provides a potential motive for why the Trump administration is desperate to keep the full Epstein files buried. Because if a birthday note contains this much coded intimacy, what do 300 gigabytes of FBI files reveal about their wonderful secrets? And what's in the recordings, the interview transcripts, the evidence seized from Epstein's properties? And the survivors, again, standing on the Capitol steps, deserve answers. And so do we. And there was another article that came out as of, I think, yesterday or the day before. That's also interesting, and I don't see a lot of people talking about. But it's this article from New York Times, and it's that for 15 years, JP Morgan Chase, America's largest and most prestigious bank, served as Jeffrey Epstein's financial lifeline, processing over $1 billion in transactions, even as employees repeatedly warned that he was likely trafficking young women. And this wasn't ignorance, it was a choice made over and over and over and over and over and over and over again by executives who valued profits over protecting children. Because from 2003 and onward, JP Morgan employees watched Epstein withdraw staggering amounts of cash, $1.7 million in 2004 to 2005 alone. and in patterns that screamed human trafficking. An anti-money laundering specialist knew these were warning signs, and one employee seeing Epstein send $450,000 to an 18-year-old girl exclaimed in an email, "Sugar daddy." So the bank's own human trafficking task force had identified exactly these patterns: frequent large cash withdrawals and wire transfers to young women as hallmarks of sex trafficking. Yet when Epstein was arrested in 2006 and pleaded guilty to soliciting from a minor in 2008, becoming a registered sex offender, JP Morgan didn't just keep him as a client, they gave him new loans. That's really bad and disturbing. And on top of that, the architect of Epstein's protection at JP Morgan was Jess Staley, then head of the private bank and heir apparent to CEO James Dimon. And Staley's relationship with Epstein went far beyond business, like most of his relationships, it seems. And he visited Epstein's properties where girls were trafficked, that we know: the New Mexico ranch, the Manhattan townhouse, and the Caribbean island. And his emails to Epstein contained coded sexual references, saying, quote, "That was fun. Say hi to Snow White," unquote. And that's what Staley wrote in 2010. And when Epstein asked which Disney character he'd like next, Staley replied, "Beauty and the Beast." And Staley later admitted to having sex with one of Epstein's assistants, a woman who would subsequently allege in court that Epstein forced her and other victims into commercial sex with his friends over a dozen years. So you can only imagine that these code words, Snow White and Beauty and the Beast, they mean a particular type of child, which is disgusting and horrifying. And you can think of ages as well, like Snow White and Beauty and the Beast. All these girls are underaged. It's just horrifying. But Staley's most damaging service to Epstein was professional, because he repeatedly overruled compliance officers who wanted to fire Epstein. And when the bank's head of compliance, William Langford, pushed to exit Epstein in 2011, Staley gave him just 15 minutes for the meeting and told him to talk to Epstein's criminal lawyer instead. Quote, "He would trust Epstein with his daughters," unquote, Staley told colleagues, which is like, he knew what was going on. He already did it. Like, to think that these disgusting men have daughters is just so sad. So why in the would JP Morgan protect a known sex offender? And the answer is very plain and simple, and that's just money and connections. And it just paints my worldview even more negative than it already is. It goes so far beyond Epstein, and I think that's why I want to keep talking about this, because as I look more and more into this, it just branches off into like every corner of the world and every corner of like the most powerful parts of the world, which is scary. And Epstein wasn't just wealthy, he was a collector of people who delivered invaluable contacts to the bank. And he introduced JP Morgan to Sergey Brin, Google's co-founder, who parked $4 billion at the bank. And he facilitated JP Morgan's $1.3 billion acquisition of Highbridge Capital, earning himself a $15 million fee. And he arranged meetings with Benjamin Netanyahu and Bill Gates, who are both terrible people. And we could do a whole other video on that alone. And he brought in clients worth millions in annual fees. And by 2003, Epstein was the biggest revenue generator among investor clients in JP Morgan's private bank, contributing over $8 million in fees annually. And the bank valued him so highly that it opened 134 accounts for him and his companies and his associates, including accounts used to pay his victims. Everything's just so corrupt. It's just, I don't know, I just want to crawl in a hole, you know? And 4 separate times between 2006 and 2011, bank officials tried to fire Epstein as a client. And each time, senior executive, including Staley and Mary Erdos, who ran the private bank, and Stephen Cutler, the general counsel, decided to keep him. And even after JP Morgan finally closed Epstein's accounts in 2013, they maintained secret contact with him. And the bank's employees continued meeting with him, visiting his properties, and using him as an intermediary with other wealthy clients like Leon Black, who Epstein paid $158 million to for unclear services. But we can probably safely assume, allegedly, that it was trafficking. And when Epstein died in 2019, JP Morgan scrambled to cover their tracks. And they filed 4,700 suspicious activity reports retroactively. And these are reports that should have been filed in real time to alert law enforcement. And these reports covered transactions to Russian and Eastern European banks that recruited young women, and also payments to trafficking victims, and suspicious cash withdrawals totaling millions. And Diamonds or Dimmons or whatever the his name is denials throughout this scandal has maintained he, quote, didn't recall knowing anything about Jeffrey Epstein, unquote, until 2019. And this despite his top executives fighting over Epstein for years and internal emails referencing decisions pending Dimon review. So he reviewed all these emails that involved Epstein, and Staley testified that he briefed Dimon about Epstein multiple times. And as attorney David Bowies put it, quote, either Dimon knew about Epstein and lied under oath, or his subordinates kept him in the dark. Neither is good, unquote. And the non-consequences, despite enabling a sex trafficker for 15 years and processing over $1 billion in suspicious transactions, JP Morgan faced minimal consequences. And they would pay $365 million in settlements, a rounding error for a bank that made $50 billion in profit that year. And no executives were fired, and no regulators took action. And Dimon, or Diamond, or whatever the remains one of the world's most powerful bankers. And as trafficking expert Bridget Carr concluded, quote, the ultimate message to other financial institutions is that they can keep serving traffickers. It's still profitable, unquote. So what does this all mean? What does this all mean, Christina? You're just yapping. I don't even understand. Well, the JP Morgan Epstein relationship reveals something more disturbing than a single bad actor. It exposes how America's financial system is designed to protect the corrupt, powerful people while enabling crimes against the utmost vulnerable. And when given a choice between protecting literal children and protecting profits, JP Morgan chose profits. Not once, but repeatedly, systemically, for 15 years. Every wire transfer JP Morgan processed helped traffic a girl, and every loan they extended gave Epstein more power to. And every time they overruled employees trying to fire him, they chose money over morality. And the bank didn't just fail to stop Epstein, they were the engine that powered his crimes. So the $1 billion JP Morgan processed for Epstein wasn't just money moving through accounts. It was the fuel for a massive trafficking operation that destroyed hundreds of young women's lives. And when those lives were weighed against profits, JP Morgan's math was simple. The girls didn't matter, but the money did. And this is the system that these survivors are fighting to expose. And this is why they stand on the Capitol steps demanding the release of the files. Because Jeffrey Epstein wasn't a lone predator who somehow fooled the system. He was a predator the system chose to protect. Hey, to those watching, this is obviously a different day. I'm wearing different clothes and everything, but I just wanted to keep this as updated as possible. There was new news that came in just yesterday, so I wanted to add in a section because I think it's extremely prevalent to everything I'm talking about in this video. And that is that as of September 11th, 2025, which is yesterday for me, Bloomberg News dropped a bombshell that changes everything we thought we knew about Ghislaine Maxwell's role in the Epstein crimes. I mean, obviously we know she's guilty. She was obviously a huge part of it, but she said that she only had a relationship with him up until a certain point. But now we have proof that that is just all bullshit, which, like, obviously. But we have 18,000 emails from Epstein's personal Yahoo account now, and what's in them is disturbing. And 650 of those emails are between him and Maxwell. And they reveal she wasn't just his property manager or somebody that was just behind the scenes and didn't really know what was going on, but like also didn't say anything. She was quite literally the head lead of the trafficking empire. And, you know, I think all of us already like knew that because she's in jail for 20 years. Obviously she's guilty of something, but it just goes even further. She's even more guilty, if that's even possible, than we even thought. Because in May of 2008, as Epstein was negotiating his sweetheart plea deal, he asked Maxwell which charge she preferred. And he said, quote, lewd and lascivious conduct or procuring minors for prostitution. And her response was, I would prefer lewd and lascivious conduct, W/A prostitute, if possible. So she's literally helping him choose which child sex crime to plead guilty to. And this is the woman who told federal officials in July of 2025 that she was kept in the dark about his legal troubles. At this point, they just need to put a toilet in front of her mouth because she's just spewing bullshit constantly. But the emails reveal something even more disturbing. And that's a spreadsheet documenting $1.8 million in gifts and payments between 2003 and 2006. And it reads like a trafficking ledger. There's lingerie from Victoria's Secret for Carolyn Andriano, who was 16 at the time, so she's being paid off with gifts, and over $75,000 in gifts to one victim, including Thai massage lessons and Western Union transfers, and multiple entries marked as gifts for the girls and JE Gifts Girls, and 250 entries annotated with GM, which are Ghislaine Maxwell's initials. So this wasn't some sort of generosity. It was just systemic grooming, with Maxwell as the quartermaster. And the Trump connection just gets darker, by the way. Because remember how Trump claims he cut ties with Epstein in 2004? Well, the emails tell a different story. Because it's September 14th of 2006, 2 months after Epstein was charged with soliciting prostitution, Maxwell sends him a list of 51 power players, including Trump, saying, quote, please review list and add or remove peeps, unquote. And this is what Maxwell writes to Epstein. And Epstein's response was 2 words, remove Trump. But here's what makes this explosive. Because they're not removing him because they've cut ties, like Trump would want you to believe. They're removing him from something specific. And likely it's an event or mailing list, while Epstein is under criminal investigation. It's damage control. It's not a friendship ending. And the emails showed Trump surfacing again in August of 2007 as Maxwell's war game press strategy, saying, quote, you have to assume they went to Donald Trump, unquote, she writes, discussing potential media sources. And then there's the fertility procedures, which is just a science fiction level of evil. Because in October of 2005, while Palm Beach police were actively investigating Epstein for doing terrible things to a 14-year-old girl, Maxwell sent him a detailed donation instructions, saying, quote, you can do the sample at home. Has to be within 90 minutes of my procedure. All the ejaculate must be collected. And then September 2007, days before signing his non-prosecution agreement, we have, quote, your cup plus instructions are in the Oval Room. The sample has to be dropped off at 10, unquote. And if you don't understand what's going on, they're planning to create life together while destroying the lives of other children. And the depravity is just incomprehensible. It makes me physically ill. It makes me physically ill. And then when Virginia Giuffre went public with abuse allegations in 2014, as we know, Maxwell didn't just deny them. She actually weaponized Epstein's resources to destroy her. Because January 3rd of 2015, Maxwell circulates a confidential police report about Giuffre from when she was 15, highlighting her mother's references to drug use and possible involvement in witchcraft. And she tells Epstein she plans to distribute this dossier, asking if he has anything else to add. And 1 month later, the New York Daily News publishes an article calling Giuffre not credible, citing sealed juvenile records. And we're talking about something her mom was talking about, not even Virginia herself. They're just finding anything to use against her. So what she says, what she went through, what she experienced, won't be taken seriously by anybody that could actually help her. And as we know, Virginia would continue her legal battles for another decade after these 2015 events until her death, her self-death, in 2025. And the emails also exposed new details about who was in Epstein's pocket. We have Doug Band, Clinton's right-hand man, which we know Clinton's just a piece of shit at this point, because Maxwell and Epstein spent days arranging a $35,000 Audemars Piguet watch for him in December of 2005. And Band now claims he never received it. We never received it. But why were they giving you gifts in the first place? Sounds like they were doing something for you on the back end. And the spreadsheet also says otherwise. And then there's Tom Barrack, Trump's close friend and current ambassador to Turkey, listed for an $11,000 Rolex in 2003. And his assistant scheduled urgent meetings with Epstein in 2006 after Epstein was charged. That's a bit suspicious. Why would you need an emergency meeting with a sex trafficker? And then there's Sergey, I don't know how to say your name, I don't really care, Brin, a Google co-founder. And the emails confirm he spent New Year's 2006 on Epstein's Island with his then girlfriend, 23andMe founder and Wojcicki, I don't know how to say your last name. And Maxwell coached Epstein, saying, quote, "Be very nice to her. She's interested in mapping DNA. She is key." All this, it's just creepy. It is like a horror movie. I keep saying it, but it is like a horror movie unfolding. And then there's the most immediate casualty, and that is UK Ambassador Peter Mandelson, who was fired within 48 hours of the leak after emails showed him telling Epstein, quote, "I think the world of you," unquote, before his 2008 sentencing, urging him to fight for early release. Again, it goes so beyond the United States. It is a foreign issue. It is a international issue. Our country and foreign countries blackmailing each other to keep them all being pieces of shit. Like it goes so far. It goes so far into other countries, and they just want to keep distracting us with stuff. And in Epstein's birthday book, Mandelson had called him "my best pal." And the UK Foreign Office said the email revealed a relationship materially different from what they knew when appointing him. Translation, they're in full damage control mode, basically. They're like, oh shit, everyone found out that he's a file. So guess we gotta say that we gotta fire him, we gotta get him out of office. So what do the emails really prove? Well, Maxwell claimed her role was very, very diminished by 2008. But the emails show they exchanged 203 messages in the first 6 months of that year, more than one per day. And she claimed she didn't know details about his crimes, but she was literally choosing which crime he should plead to. And she claimed she was just a property manager when she was managing a spreadsheet of payments to trafficking victims. Not to mention she was planning on having a f***ing kid with him, it seems. And she claimed to barely know his associates, but she was personally arranging luxury watches for presidents, advisors, and tech billionaires. So every single word that comes out of Ghislaine Maxwell's disgusting mouth has just been a lie. She's a liar, which we know. She just can't believe anything that comes out of her mouth. Seems like nobody's mouth in this whole case. Anybody that has been, kind of looked at in this case, just can't believe them. I just don't believe anyone anymore. And it's scary. And a victim who received $75,000 in gifts told Bloomberg the truth about what those payments meant. Quote, "Jeffrey Epstein was all about control. First, complete isolation. Once he was in control of my location, he had control of everything. From finances to belief systems to even more perverse things like attire, vocabulary, exercise routine," unquote. These weren't gifts, these were chains put on victims to control them. And Maxwell seemed to hold the keys. She helped him choose his guilty plea. She managed payments to victims. She destroyed survivors who spoke out. She tried to have his child while he was children. This is who Ghislaine Maxwell really was. This is who Ghislaine Maxwell really is. Not an Epstein employee. She's his evil, disgusting, waste of oxygen partner. And these emails weren't sitting in evidence lockers while Maxwell did softball interviews with Trump's deputy attorney general, while she claimed she couldn't recall if Trump contributed to Epstein's birthday book, while she served her 20-year sentence in minimum security against Bureau of Prisons policy. The system isn't just protecting predators, it's negotiating with them. And it's, I don't know. I don't know what to think anymore. And to touch on other news that just came out with the horrific assassination of Charlie Kirk, and just the way the world's reacting to it is heartbreaking. Whether you agree with him, whether you don't agree with him, this is all down to humanity at this point. And the school and girl getting stabbed on the train, it's just like, what does this world come to? And I know it's been like this, but we're just all fighting each other when we should be looking to who's in charge. And now we're 6 years after Epstein's death and 4 years after Ghislaine Maxwell's conviction. And we're still here watching survivors beg for truth while the powerful protect themselves. But here's what gives me a hope, and that's that the survivors aren't giving up. And I'm not gonna shut up. But they're compiling their list, they're speaking truth to power, and they're refusing to be silenced, even as the system that failed to protect them as children continues to fail them as adults. But until every document is released, until every enabler is named, until justice is more than a word politicians throw around during campaigns, the survivors will keep fighting. And I will keep yapping. And I think a quote from Lord Acton kind of sums up what's going on with the government right now, or just all the superpowers of the world, and that's, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Great men are almost always bad men. And that fits with this so well, in my opinion. And he was talking in regards to kings, popes, and just basically anybody at power. But another quote I like by good old Martin Luther King Jr. is, "The ultimate tragedy is not the oppression and cruelty by the bad people, but the silence over that by the good people." And that's why we're going to choose to not be silent. That's why we're going to keep talking, keep yapping about this, because I'm tired of powerful people just getting what they want and doing the most evil things in the world, and there's just no consequences for them. All I want is accountability. All I want is for these people to rot behind bars. All I want is for the victims to be able to not fear for their lives and to get some justice. And I don't think that's too much to ask. So that's it for me, and I'll keep you updated. And also, just a reminder, you can click the link in the description to download FaceApp in the App Store, or you can click the QR code on the screen. And you can also try the Pro version for 1 week free. Available on the App Store and Google Play. Thank you to FaceApp for supporting this channel when YouTube doesn't like to. But that is the end of the video. I just want to say thank you so much for watching, and be safe and keep talking. Keep talking, because that's what's most important.